What's up? What's up? What is up? It's another Friday, the afternoon edition from a live recording standpoint, but no less energy, no less on the rough, rugged, and raw. This is the Ball Hawk Sports Talk, where sports, business, and entertainment collide. Two businessmen get together to discuss sports in an entertaining fashion. Welcome to the experience. Welcome to the recording. Welcome to the podcast. Today's episode is going by the title of Rich Dad, Poor Dad. If you have not heard of that book, it's known as one of the cornerstones, the building blocks of financial freedom. It's known as one of the ways to change a mindset. And if you've been a part of the Ball Hawk Sports Talk before, you know that we use things like this to get into sports business entertainment. You don't want to miss this one. Make sure that you fasten your seatbelts. Boys and girls, cats and rats, dogs and frogs. With no further ado, come to the stage. Pull up a chair. It's the live recording of the Ball Hawk Sports Talk. And you know how we do it. We might as well get it done. Let's go. Wake up, wake up, wake up, and stay woke. Because this is the Ball Hawk Sports Talk with your boy, B. Brown, ESQ, a.k.a. the Ball Hog, a.k.a. the Mouth of the South. This is the place where sports, business, and entertainment collide. And we're going to give it to you rough, rugged, and raw. So come get you a spoonful, like some grits with butter and salt. You know how we do it in the South, y'all. Make sure you do not get caught in your feelings. Strap on your seatbelt and enjoy the ride. Come on, let's go. Once again, it's on. I get to be in front of this microphone, and I wouldn't want to be in front of this microphone with anybody else. That's right. Other than he who shall be known as the man, the myth, the legend, the brother from the Middle Coast. When you say his name, make sure that you pucker up, put some bass in your voice, say it with your chest.
It's an interesting visual.
Whatever, man. You know what I'm saying.
Pucker
Don't interrupt the introduction, man. It's your introduction. You can't interrupt your introduction.
Keep going. More compliments.
Thou who shall be intergalactically known as respected as the Big Flow Show is in the building. What's up, my brother?
Man, not enough, man. Not enough. Just trying to make it.
Just trying to make it in this crazy world. I'm glad that you were able to make it on this fabulous Friday morning. I'm glad that you were able to make it in front of your fabulous microphone and in front of our fabulous audience. I know this is the 1 p.m. version, so let's call it brunch, which most of our live audience viewers are not used to, but we're going to get it done anyway. We got some good stuff today, man. Today's episode is going by the title of Rich Dad, Poor Dad. As a man who is well invested, got holdings all around the world, I'm assuming you've read Rich Dad, Poor Dad.
I've read that book a little bit. I'm still on the poor dad phase, but I read it. I'm like the before picture.
You and me both. But yet and still, we in here. We trying to make a way, trying to do a little bit better. Written by Robert Kiyosaki. I guess the very short, abbreviated overview would be Cliff Notes. Light would be it's a book about changing your mindset when it comes to investing, when it comes to working, when it comes to being an entrepreneur and owning versus being an employee and working for something that is owned. Fair summary?
Fair enough.
All right. Bear with me here because now we're going to use this cornerstone of business principle. Use this cornerstone of changing your mentality to get in sports business entertainment. I was a part of what it was a big build-up game. Youth football 13U, big build-up game. We lost to a team that was well coached, a lot of our former players, and it was great to see some of those former players there, but it also means you had to interact with the parents in the lead up. And now interact with the parents after the fact. They won the game. hats off to their coaches and their players. I feel as though, to be accountable, I told my guys, look, I feel like we got out coached, man. And we being me as the head coach. And it happens sometimes. Rarely as a player did I feel like, man, I didn't show up that day. Rarely as a coach do I feel that way. But if I'm being honest, just when I look back on it, it's like we could have done so many different things different. They were owning time of possession. I felt myself getting off of script to do what I needed to do. But being in that position means I got to also admit that I feel as though I was underwhelming if I'm grading myself. Having said that, the aftermath and the lead up has led me to this concept of rich dad, poor dad when it comes to youth sports. And bear with me here. And you have accepted the overview of the book written by Mr. Robert Kiyosaki. Let's see if you'll accept this when it comes to youth sports. You're a sports dad, correct?
Absolutely.
How long? Let's give you a resume in terms of a sports dad. How long you been in this space of being a sports dad? Lay out your resume.
My son's 21 years old, and he started playing sports at 5.
At 5, okay. And now you still have a daughter that's a high school athlete.
So she started after that. She was older, but she didn't really become. I didn't become a sports dad when it pertained to my daughter until probably junior high ish.
Okay.
Because she was more of a horseback riding dance type. Whatever. I was never a dance dad.
You've never been a dancer. I saw you once, and yeah, cool.
No, I'm spectacular on my feet, but
you can't dance, man. Anyway, I digress.
As you typically do. As you typically do.
I'm here in this place with someone that has the ultimate credibility. Okay. My sons are now, 13U and 11U football, so I've had several years of it too. I'm going to ask you if this analogy holds true, this business-minded, well-invested, with holdings all over, aficionado. When it comes to that analogy, rich dad, poor dad, investor, and now we're in youth sports, rich dad, poor dad, watch this. What I realize in the buildup, when I realize in some of the parents taking their kids to this other program, when I realize after the game, when I'm hearing the backlash that, oh man, we lost, is that there's a similar narrow-minded, let's call it an employee approach to sports for some dads. What do I mean by that? The truth of the matter is your statistical output on a 13U team, in the grand scheme of your investing into a sport and how it plays a role in getting you to high school, plays a role in getting into the right high school that'll get you to the right college, that'll get you to the right opportunities, is almost impossible to even measure. It's that small. And yet, people exchange their time, their energy. They sacrifice friendships, meaningful ones, for the short-sighted investment and making sure little Johnny is the starting fill in the blank. Whereas other dads, I got to give it to Mr. St. Brown, who has his podcast. He's dropping jewels. He just had Cam Newton on his podcast. Other dads, and I like to fancy myself as being in this second category, who see it as a small piece to a big puzzle, and we want, dare I use the analogy, passive income. I don't need you to get statistical output right now. I need the soft skills of learning how to compete. I need the soft skills of learning what it means to come off the bench, to be put into a different position involuntarily, to be around other dogs and still shine, because it is that investment, sticking with this analogy, that is a rich dad mentality and will put you in a position to be in control of your own portfolio, the sport, the opportunities, the fact that this is not exchanging time for money, but instead building a portfolio for passive income. Did I do a good job of making the connection? thou who is well invested from a real estate perspective, thou who is well invested in terms of being a sports dad, thou who is experienced because you laid out your resume, are you buying the analogy?
I am. I think that I think the investment can't really be measured. I mean, it's one of those things that you look back and you see it, it only seems expensive if it doesn't pay off, right?
Fair,
It
fair.
kind of
Give me,
seems,
give me more. It only seems expensive. You just dropped the jewel. I wish I
yeah.
had the clue bomb. It only
It
seems
only seems
expensive.
expensive if it doesn't pay
It
off because
doesn't pay off. Get it. Drop a jewel on a big flow. Let's go with it. I'm in the
you
amen
get
corner, my brother. Let's hear it. What do
you
you
got to
mean by
make.
that,
I don't
sir?
know how it is in New Jersey, but like in Chicago, right? We're always looking for bigger and better. I'm guilty of it, trying to find something a better situation. You try to better the situation, but you put yourself in a risk, and you have to not care, right? Because you know, out here it's the Catholic schools, right? The Catholic schools are running between $12,000 and $16,000 a year in tuition, and people are transferring their kids to these schools, or they're moving out of good school districts to get their kids into these schools for a perceived advantage. I've always been against paying for a high school only because where I live, the high schools are good, right? You just have to manage through some different wherever you go, there's stuff to manage, right? You got to deal
Absolutely.
with the coaches, you got to compete, you got to do whatever, blah blah blah. I would argue that the Catholic schools can be worse because people are actually writing checks and
Mm-hmm.
donating money, and that actually is a factor. Where in the public school, there really isn't. The rich person isn't really going to get the same type of benefit as whatever. There's other cultural, in my area at least, there's cultural pressures to make sure that the demographics of the players are kind of fit a certain expectation, and I
Uh-oh.
think there's cultural pushes
Okay.
there.
I ain't
But
gonna, I ain't gonna, I ain't gonna slow you down and put you in that mud. But I
dig
get
me,
what you're
don't
saying.
dig me.
I
You
get
know
what
where
you're
I'm
saying.
at, but dig whatever.
Yep, I
But
get what you're saying.
you're still gonna play. But it's not free. I got to pay my tax dollars. But these people are not passing up. So when you look at the investment, it goes back to, was it worth it? I look back at youth basketball.
Mm-hmm.
My son played youth basketball from kindergarten to eighth grade. We traveled all across the country. We got in tournaments. We did real ignorant stuff like playing two tournaments in two different locations in one weekend and just get games scheduled. So we overplayed the hell out of them. Now 11 people off of that team are D1 athletes today. Uh, Only three of them are basketball players. And I look back and say, man, I wish I could have just went to half those tournaments. I think we still have the memories because we forgot half the stuff. I wish I could just go back to half of them and let the other ones ride because I spent a ton of money. But at the end of the day, the story is, well, your son got a scholarship to college, right?
Right.
Your son's in a better place. Your son's this, your son's that, whatever. So then it seems worth it. So those investments seem like poor investments. Those investments seem like buying a car versus buying a piece of real estate. If your kid doesn't really get anything out of it, doesn't make it. And it doesn't have to be a scholarship, but it has to be a noticeable difference in your child getting ready. I've seen kids that came through our program who got to high school, and by the time they were seniors in high school, no longer played the sport. I would say that the cost is a little too expensive.
So let me just, I'm gonna push back a little bit, and then we'll get into the topics for today because we got some good topics. We're gonna talk about, you know like high school decisions, the rich dad versus poor dad approach to where your child goes to high school. We're gonna talk about Bronny James and Coach Prime and even Angel Reese with this rich dad poor dad mentality. But let me push back a little bit because I guess the investment, right? The passive investment that, or the passive return, passive income that you want on an investment might not necessarily sufficiently pay your bills for a particular month. But over time, you're building that stream that, if invested right in the other areas, indeed will provide you the freedom to be rich dad versus poor dad employee. I would say, from a sports analogy, even if the kid doesn't go on to play in their senior year, even if he doesn't go on to get a college scholarship, I would argue that being in that environment of competition, I would argue that being willing to commit so much that you have 2 different tournaments in a general area within a weekend and
Not general
willing
area.
to,
The state
I
area.
would just argue that there's going to be areas in their life that those investments are going to pay off. And it's tough for you because you've got a son still in college, a daughter that is about to go be a college athlete. So maybe you haven't been willing or able yet to tap into those returns on the investment. But I think that there's still some return to that investment because not everybody can do that. Not everybody can commit. Not everybody can. Nowadays it's not even like a local thing when it comes to youth sports. I travel 45 minutes one direction every day to go to practice. I've got kids that travel an hour and 20 minutes. I've got a kid that's coming from Shirley, New York, a 2.5 hour drive and staying with me some nights because he wanted to be coached the right way in his last year of youth football and trusted my coaching staff with that. I would argue that those investments that you make, rich dad mentality, as long as you're doing it the right way and not doing it just because little Johnny is going to start, I would argue that those investments, when compared to the other peers in your life, give you the advantage. Just the willingness to do it, even if you don't go on to be a high school All-American and go on to play for Big Ten and go on to be an NFL, NBA star, just being willing to do it, I think sets you on a path towards a return on those investments forever, well beyond just the sport. I'll give you last word before we get into the details of it. What say you as I push back just a bit in terms of what we're defining as the returns on our investment as a sports dad?
I think you brought up something, it's great. It's what you want to get out of it. I've seen kids go to, it's real big out here for trainers, like shooting coaches, quarterback
Shooting
coaches.
coaches, y'all teach me how to shoot out there in Chicago. I know y'all be bucking and everything, but my bad.
Yeah, we got shooters. Yeah, we got all kinds of coaching out here. And sometimes you talk to the parents and they said, "Look, my son's out here. I'll be happy if he's a starting quarterback at the high school. I'll be happy if my son makes the basketball team."
Right.
Who am I to define what your level of success is and what makes you happy, whatever? People realize that they can't get into that top 3% of athletes and make it to college, but it's important to them that their kid has a high school career where that's filled with the school spirit and be able to go out there and have the Friday night lights and fill the gym and dribble up the court. I've known many people that put it in. If that is your return that you're looking for, then that's fine. But you can't. I can't judge your return based on what
every
would be
investor has a different outlook of what they want. Fair.
Yeah, what's worth it for me, and it may not be worth it for you. I lived the high school dream of being the man that's on the field and doing all this stuff. I've lived that.
Did you have a full head of hair when you were living that dream? Just the audience asked me that.
If you let my wife tell you, she'll say I was born this way and I've always been bald because she's a mean person.
Hey, tell her that's foul. Wives, spouses are not allowed to talk about baldness.
She says hurtful things
party foul
on a regular basis. But I had a high top fade. It wasn't quite kid and play. It was more like.
But you had a full head of hair. All right, so now I can visualize high school star, high top fade. You lived.
I didn't put a lot of stock in that, right? So to me, being a high school star was no big deal. Like it was whatever. My friends were all the same situation. Now, there probably was somebody out there who would have died just to be that, right?
Right.
So to me, it was college. If you're not from first grade on, we were doing this for a reason, right?
Yeah.
From kindergarten on, we were doing this for a reason.
When you say as a dad or as an athlete, from first grade on as a dad or first grade on as an athlete.
So for me, it was this, talk to my son, what we're going to be, you going to play basketball? You going to play football? What are we going to do? Is it going to be soccer? What is it going to be? All right, we're going to narrow this down, but we're doing this towards this dream. We're talking about this goal for a year. So when it finally happens, you've invested so much and you're like, man, we've been at this for 12 years.
Right.
right? And you are about to go live this thing that we've been working on, the two of us, for 12 years, and the many other hands that have helped along the way. But the two of us have been talking about this goal for 12 years. I didn't take my daughter seriously when it came to be an athletic athlete until she wrote me a text message during COVID saying she wanted to join this club. Club had a little shaky past with some
A
stuff.
volleyball club. You say
A
club.
volleyball club that was
Yep.
very expensive, and the owner of the club had some things. Back in the 80s, he was a little suspect on some stuff. She wanted to join, so a lot of people didn't want their kids to join the club. He was still affiliated, but he's like 65 years old now. But my point was, my daughter wrote down a long text message about how she wants to be a college athlete and she wants to do this, whatever. Until then, my wife handled my daughter's activities. Until she told me she was serious, my wife signed her up for stuff, and it was whatever was convenient for the carpool. And so when she told me she wanted to do it, then let's do it. But that's my standard of it. Like, I don't care about being a high school captain, or I like that. I mean, my daughter and son are both captains of the team. I think that shows a lot. That's part of it, what comes with it. But that wasn't worth an investment to me. But that doesn't mean that's the same way for everybody else. So to have the final word, I think you decide whether it's worth it.
Fair. Before I pivot, I'll say this because you made me think of some things. Because you're right, everybody's investment horizon is different. And so for me, when I read the book Rich Dad Poor Dad, to stick with the analogy, I used to think growing up in my neighborhood that if you went on to have a nice middle class, respectable, paying job, that you were living the dream. In the 80s, as a black family, if you went on to become a teacher, you were living your dream. There's a pension associated with that, or you go on to become, one of these pension paying, when that still existed before 401ks, this pension paying corporate job. You were living the dream. And I read Rich Dad Poor Dad, and I came away with this sort of sullied viewpoint of how I grew up, because that's the opposite of Rich Dad Poor Dad. The idea that you're exchanging time for money as an employee, that every time a dollar comes in, it comes in because I've exchanged a certain number of hours there, and you give me a salary that's capped, a salary that is determined by somebody else. If I get a bonus, it's normally discretionary based on my boss's decision of whether or not my performance meets their expectation. So when I read this book, I was like flabbergasted that my whole world of thinking that this is how you progress. You go get an education, you go get a job, and you have made it. That American dream, that version of American dream, was undermined by the book. Fast forward, and here we are in youth sports. And maybe I'm doing the same thing for somebody else. If your version of the American dream when it comes to youth sports is every single week, little Johnny's got to have enough clips to go post, to me, that's a poor dad mentality. If you've always got to be the best on the team, you've always got to be the focal point of the offense or the defense, if you've always got to be someone that they deem as captain, if you've always got to win and be undefeated and get a trophy, you are taking a poor dad approach, stick with the analogy, to youth sports. The long-term investor, the person that wants passive income, the person that wants to be an entrepreneur and be an owner, has to use youth sports as a vehicle to get where they want to get, but the investment has nothing to do with whether or not little Johnny scored 3 touchdowns, whether or not little Johnny is in the starting 5 right now. Because at 13U, from a football perspective, or you're at 11 on the basketball court, I hate to be the bearer of bad news. If you're investing all your eggs into that basket, you are a horrible investor. You are the poor dad mentality of what it means to be in youth sports. I'm dressed like this today because I did an interview for one of the schools that my son is considering for high school.
Parole hearing. That's not.
Say that again.
I thought you were trying to press the judge. I thought you had a parole hearing today to see. I thought, my bad.
You know what? Just for the record, I just want this on the record, Mr. Parole. You can be a jerk sometimes. A parole hearing, you just
No, I didn't know. I didn't know. I didn't know.
I am not dressed like this because of parole hearing, my friend.
Try to see if you can get some
friends
years
like this.
Show your ankle.
I cannot confirm or deny until I see your ankle.
Let me see your ankle. Let's put your ankle.
But I will say this, man. I'm dressed like this today because we went to one of the schools that my son is considering, and when we walked in, it was awesome to see that he was well received. The basketball coach, football coach is there. The athletic director is there. They've got this great day of programming set up for my son. And I'm walking in and I'm thinking about sort of this concept of rich dad, poor dad, right? Not knowing exactly that this is where I was going with it, but whatever you're doing in youth sports, make sure it's a long-term investment. Make sure it's for not just the tangible output of statistical success, but also the intangibles of learning how to be on a team. How to deal with adversity, how to deal with change when the coach makes a decision that, we're going to go with this instead. And it might negatively impact the stats right now. How to deal with somebody that you don't necessarily like might be a personality conflict. It's going to happen again. And youth sports should be the breeding ground for us who want to be owners, real investors, for long-term returns, for passive income on the returns that we put in, to think holistically. So for those who are laughing and hating on the fact that, we lost the game, and to be frank, Coach Bobby was out of sorts. They were controlling the clock. I got off of my normal cool Zen self as a play caller, and I feel as though, if I'm being honest, I lost from a coaching standpoint. It happens. It also happens when it comes to some of the NBA guys. The barbershop talk this week has been that Bronny James is the quintessential example of nepotism, that he doesn't even deserve to be in the NBA. The cries for using his current statistical output as evidence of why LeBron James Jr., aka Bronny, should not be in the NBA have gone. They've just grown to be very loud voices. And the investor, the short-term investor, I think that the person who's the employee, who needs their check right now, they're exchanging time for money, that person with that mentality, let's call it poor dad, seems to hate on Bronny James Jr. Seems to hate on the investment that LeBron James Sr., LeBron James, is making in his child. And I think it's because rich dad and poor dad will always have an impasse when they're trying to have philosophical discussions. I know you're a LeBron James Sr. fan. You've made that quite clear. You know that I'm a LeBron James Sr. hater. I made that quite clear. I'm a scorned woman, if you will, when it comes to LeBron James Sr. He left my team. He broke my heart, so I hate on him. But there's no way on God's green earth, as a dad, as an investor, as someone that tries to fancy himself from a mentality standpoint as a rich dad, long-term investment, horizon, let's have passive income, let's own some things in addition to being an employee, hence the Ball Hog Sports Talk, where you and I own this. Y'all need to make us go viral and blow up so we can quit being employees.
Put some value on this.
There's no way I can think anything negative about LeBron James and his handling, supporting, and navigating the choppy waters for Bronny James. What am I missing? Is it just rich dad mentality will never understand poor dad? I don't get why people hate on Bronny. But there are grown men in barbershops right this second taking a he hate me approach to anything and everything that is Bronny James. They are talking about the analytics where most people aren't even talking about analytics for a guy that's just a second round pick in the NBA. We're not talking about analytics for any other second round pick. But we're using it to say he shouldn't be there. Statistically, Bronny James on Wednesday was 1 for 3. He had 3 points, 33% from the field. He was 1 for 2 from the free throw line, 50% from the field. Neither one of those are great numbers. But he had 5 rebounds, 3 assists, 2 steals, 3 blocks in about 29 minutes of action. Now, for the purest among us, we know that LeBron James Sr. is such an anomaly because he checks so many statistical boxes. And I think Bronny James Jr. as a player has an upside because of the same thing. Yet, in every barbershop, hyperbole, not every barbershop, but in a lot of the barbershops right now, the conversation is Bronny James Jr. does not belong in the NBA. It's an example of nepotism, and he's taking the spot of somebody else. Please help me understand this poor dad mentality when it comes to Bronny James, the topic that is seemingly always on the hater's mind.
You know, I just think that I laugh in a lot of situations about what bothers people and what doesn't bother people. So, like Giannis's brother
Say his name. Say his name. Say it. I dare you.
Onomatopoeia. Acapulco. 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 Giannis Acapulco is his brother, whose name you don't even know. The first name. You can't even say Bronny because you don't even know his name. His brother's out there taking up a seat. It doesn't bother anybody. Nobody cares.
Right? Nobody cares.
No one cares. His brother's out there.
Nobody.
You got
some argue that Seth Curry was the same thing.
Yeah.
The brother.
The third ball brother, when he could get out there. They was trying to put him out there.
Austin Rivers. You can go down the list of them. There's a lot of them.
Although I got some story. Yeah, they say some people out there. The bottom line is like there's always gonna be some sort of nepotism, some sort of, you know, it just goes down to his brother when he came to Bama, you know, and he had to switch. And he turned out to be a good quarterback somewhere else. But like
Maryland.
we could sit here and think of all the examples. Luke Walton being a coach because of Bill Walton. You know, there's so many things that you're going to see in this world that a very rich, accomplished person is going to take care of their kids. You have a company, and the kids are the successor of the company. You work at the company. Are you upset because the son becomes a CEO and not you? You think everything's fair like that? No, it's how things work. But if you don't like LeBron James, it's going to bother you that Bronny's going to do it. If you look at Bronny James and say, okay, man, he got drafted and he didn't do this, he didn't do that. I want you to watch I like to watch the drafts because I love to see the backstories. You can see how many people get drafted from overseas that average 4 points a game. You can see all these people that get drafted on potential in the NBA because there's not that many people who could just come out from wherever they're doing today and go in the NBA and be an impact player.
It's a tough league from a success
definitely less than
standpoint.
2 rounds worth of people. You know what I mean? There's probably 15 people. Some guys that are in the second round, they're going to come out there and ball, but there's people that are going to have to go overseas and come back and that we never have an opportunity to do it. So it bothers you because LeBron James said it was going to happen and it happened and it went to his team. And it seems like it's more in your face than other things, but really it's not. I mean, he gets an opportunity. He recorded stats. If you or I went to an NBA basketball game right now,
hey. And when he say you, he's talking to proverbial you in general. He ain't talking to me because what you about to say, I don't agree with.
I've been waiting 3 years on a dunk that's not going to happen. But I'm saying
it's going to happen.
At the end of the day, you know, all these people that are so mad you couldn't go in the NBA and record stats in 5 categories. He can. And you know what? Bronny was, when he was young, and he's a year younger than my son. We were in many basketball tournaments together. He was never on a team. He never did anything. He could never play with us. We would have ran him off the court. His team was never as good as the teams we were on. But you know what? My son's dad is me, and his dad is him. his ceiling's a little higher than my son's ceiling when it came to hoop. And the amount of work he could put in what he's doing, he's gotten a lot further along than many people think. So I don't think his ceiling is up. I
Right.
don't think there's any reason why. He's
He
going to
can't
have the best trainers. He's going to have the best nutrition. He's going to have the best everything. His dad's going to teach him how to be a pro. I think, as Gary Wilson said, parents matter. I think this
what's
rich
up, bros? That's Jerry and Glass
Jerry,
Bart
I'm sorry.
chimes in. Let me just say this before we look at Glass Bart's comment, because I think it really echoes a lot of people's feelings, and that's I think a pure version of it versus the hater version of it. And at the spirit of disclosing this, because I happen to know it, like your son was and other teammates, right, are getting internships with some of our existing teammates that have gone on to do great things and they're CEOs of companies, right? Do they have great resumes? Yes, but the fact that there is a familiar relationship, uncle such and such, a former teammate, a CEO, can bring them in for an internship. Nothing wrong with that. I dare to use this idea to frame it again, rich dad, poor dad mentality. For us, especially as Black folk, we in the barbershop mad that I'm gonna read the comment in a second. Thanks, Glass Bart. Thanks, Jerry Wilson. We're mad that a lot of us that LeBron James Sr. provided this pathway and this opportunity for LeBron James Jr., aka Bronny. Isn't this why we put in the work from a rich dad mentality? Aren't we investing all of this time to create opportunities for our kids from a rich dad mentality? Aren't we trying to buy the block so our kids never have to work from a rich dad mentality? Aren't we supposed to be in a better position from a relationship standpoint to use our position for our kids' advantage than our parents were? And so for us to frown upon it, I think is a poor dad mentality in terms of that conversation.
The world is jealous of the successful people, right? So at the end of the day, you see a guy driving down the street in a really nice car, see someone walking in with a real beautiful woman and a real nice watch. Most of the people in there hate that person. I hate you.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
There's a few people out there who are going to give props and be like, hey, man, how can I be down? They want to learn. But the majority of the people who are walking by that person and seeing that person who's successful, they hate that person, which is part of the reason why snobby people start to get snobby is because people receive them bad. And they're like,
you're going to hate me anyway. And I can't get down with your poor dad mentality.
Yeah, I'm not
let me read this comment. Go, my bad. I cut you off. You want to finish?
No, so at the end of the day, I work hard every day to try to get my kids a better life, right? And, we've achieved some stuff in this household that a lot dream about, and I'm proud that my kids are doing it, but it didn't go without work. It didn't go without means. It didn't go without hustle. It didn't go without me trying to do it. Now, we could sit back and take the mentality of, hey, I did it on my own. I want my kids to try to grind like me. Or I could say, I want this to happen because I know how good it's going to set them up for life. I'm going to help them grind through and get where they're going to go. And I'm going to choose that time every time. And I don't want to give them anything, but at the same time, other thing I want to give them is help, support, and opportunity and love. And I think that's all LeBron did. If Bronny sucks, he will be in the G League next year.
Right. And in good company with a lot of great players that are in the G League. I'll end with this because I like this John St. Brown podcast. John St. Brown is Equiminius St. Brown and Amron Ray St. Brown. And I can't think of the third one, St. Brown. It's their dad. And he said there aren't lazy kids or lazy parents. He talks about making sure that he was there to make sure his son caught every single one of those 200 passes, 202 passes on the jug machine. He talks about us being weak as parents when we leave it up to the kids. Like, well, if he don't want to do it, then he's on his own. And I got to agree to a certain extent that Mr. St. Brown has it right. The rich dad mentality is, I've got to educate you on why it doesn't make sense to be an employee, why it makes sense to invest this way so you can own it, why it makes sense for you to create some autonomy and independence for yourself, as opposed to the poor dad mentality teaching you to go get an education, to work for somebody for the rest of your life and exchange your time for your money. It just is what it is. Um, I hope that we get to a place with LeBron James Jr. that we can accept that. For those who are chiming in, I agree with you in principle, Glassbart. I know he said something about him being drafted and all of that, but he's in good company. My man Jerry Wilson says parents matter. I think that's the John St. Brown mentality, right? Because it is what it is. What we do is going to impact our kids. My man Will Mitchell, what's up, Coach? Is talking about LeVar Ball being the GOAT, right? Because that's a rich dad mentality. While the rest of the world tries to clown what was the brand called? Big Baller Brand, BBB, 3B, BQ, trash.
You mean
But
the Air ACLs, the Air ACLs.
But what he did do is provide to his kids and those who were watching a rich dad mentality. Why go sign with Nike, or ultimately I think LaMelo signed with Puma, when you can have your own brand? And whether we want to accept it or not, and Nike helped Kyrie make that decision by pushing him out of his contract, Kyrie is much better off now than he would have been under an existing and continuing Nike contract. LeVar Ball, while we don't make the connection, I would dare say was a foundational piece to that rich dad mentality. And I use it for the current state. While I care that we lost, absolutely I care. But being in that environment, letting our kids be in front of, man, there were almost every high school coach in the state was there. There were people there for a showcase game, for a 13U game at a neutral site stadium. After the game, and we were disappointed we lost, all the personal aspects of it. My kids shaking hands and being able to sit there and talk to high school coaches afterwards. It's a rich dad mentality. Winning the game would have gave me bragging rights for a few days. Making sure they live the experience has given them the return that they will need to seize the opportunity when it comes again. The return that they would need to have the relationship with that coach, that high school coach. The return that they will need when they are in a big moment, having been there before. The rich dad mentality is how we need to approach youth sports as well. And LeBron James, whether you want to admit it or not, and you sort of give your take on LeBron James Jr. in youth basketball, saying he would have never been, you would have wiped them up on the floor, wiped the floor with him in terms of the teams that we played on, because there are some star-studded AAU teams. LeBron James Sr., aka LeBron James, took a rich dad mentality approach to developing his son, and it worked. Why he hate LeBron and that he is some random person in a random barbershop is because most people have a poor dad mentality. Most people don't understand it. That's why I'm persona non grata a lot of times. They just don't understand it. I want my son and the kids on my team to be in the most smoke. I want them to get benched. I want the competition to be high, because we have been to Notre Dame. We have been in that environment. We do know there's going to be kids from Kentucky, California, everybody else. You cannot avoid the competition. Invest in your kids from a youth sports standpoint with a rich dad mentality. The right now is fun to post. The right now is fun to get credit for. The right now is really cool to get the trophy. But the right now ain't going to mean a damn thing 3 months from now, let alone 3 years, let alone when they get to college. And that's church. That's a word from the poor people's pew. I'm just here to drop a word, but LeBron James, I think, got it right and continues to get it right. I'm cheering for Bronny. Let's go, Bronny. Let's shut the haters up, man. Keep me honest with some of these comments, man.
Let's remember, about 18 months ago, he died.
Fair. Cardiac arrest. Fair.
And you tell me this man shouldn't do everything he can to try to help this dude fulfill his dream. His son died for a couple hours, a couple minutes. And he brought this man back, got him back on, nursed him back to health, however he did, whatever the best.
He didn't do that. Now the doctors did that. Now see that's a LeBron James fan. Now you saying he brought he is a biblical character. Now he brought the man back to life.
That's King James. He put both hands on him He put hands laid on
This,
him.
this is why.
What does your Bible say?
This this is.
What's the name on your Bible?
I'm gonna go get a new one today, just because you
Yeah.
put the King James on my
King
Bible.
James put hands on him and blessed him.
Oh
He's sanctified.
Lord,
He's
have
now
mercy.
sanctified.
This is
And
why. This is why. This is why. Let's hop into another topic, man. Y'all keep the comments coming. But this is a fun approach to this whole sports thing, man. There's another approach. The brutal honesty that you need in order to be a good athlete. Coach Prime, literally, and I'm gonna read it because I don't want to mess it up. He was asked about his son Shiloh. Where's 2-1 that he is famous for making famous, being Coach Prime? Shiloh is the safety, plays defensive back, the position that he is known for making famous and arguably the best ever, or one of, inarguably, at least got to be in the category of one of the best defensive backs of all time in the NFL. That 21 who's playing defensive back, Coach Prime was asked about him. He said, I thought he played horrible. He did not mince any words. I thought he played horrible. The Coach Prime approach, being brutally honest and saying what it is, and I said it from the standpoint that, man, if I'm going to keep it 100, they were controlling the clock. I'm going back to my coaching analysis. They was controlling the clock. I got off script. I was doing stuff. They out-coached me, man. And that happens sometimes, right? Like, I got the best of me that day. It doesn't happen often. As a player, I remember a USC game. There was a corner that had me out of sorts. He outplayed me that day. It didn't happen very often. As a 3-year starter at Notre Dame, that didn't happen very often. Coach Prime, being brutally honest about his own son and said, I think he played horrible, is such a rich dad mentality when it comes to being a dad/coach. He needs to hear that. If Coach Prime won't say it, again, bear with me, you youth sports people. Some of y'all are so detached from reality. Your son or your daughter could go out there and play horrible. Your son or your daughter every day in practice can show you that they have no business whatsoever being on that field or being on that court. And instead of you working in the offseason, working during season, spending the extra hours, waking up in the morning, making sure they get work at night, asking the coach respectfully, what can we work on, and then working on it. Instead of you doing that, you are the king of the pity party. You are the executive in chief of the excuse club. You do all of these things from a poor dad mentality. I think Coach Prime got it right, man. If your son don't play well, call him out. He called out other people and told them to hop in that transfer portal. He's called out people that do not wear the last name Sanders. How dare he not call out his own son? So shout out to him for that. But in addition, he called out the players from Colorado State and essentially said $600,000 offered. Why you ain't jumping that transfer portal? Coach Prime is making it
he called cap.
Clear.
He called cap on that.
Call cap, man. You ain't gonna stay at no Colorado State if you got $600,000. If you do, you a damn fool. Because $600,000, that Colorado State gonna go a long way. It's gonna cost you $3.80 a month to live in Colorado Springs. I think that's where Colorado State is. I might have that wrong. No, that's Air Force. I don't know where Colorado State is. That just goes to show you. It probably costs less than $3.80 a month. And he said, y'all better take that bread. That is a rich dad mentality. If you a bird in the hand, you better take $600,000 if you at Colorado State. You think Coach Prime was a little off the beaten path by calling him out, calling cap, but also really that is the approach that he was saying. He was basically being unapologetic and saying that if you're looking at this from an investment standpoint, you better take that $600,000 now. Talent, time, value, of money. You're going to stay at Colorado State for the prospects that you might go into the NFL? You a damn fool. Take that $600,000 and with the theory of time, value of money, use it now to invest now, to get returns now, because that's a rich dad mentality. And there's an opportunity that is golden before the NCAA comes in and regulates all this stuff. Take the bread, Fred. You don't really hear coaches saying that too often. It's a new approach that Coach Prime is in a very small class of maybe one that coaches take. Most coaches are saying and encouraging players, stick to your commitment. Give me time to develop you. Coach Prime is saying, hell no, take the bag. Is he right?
Yeah, I mean, yeah. If you $600,000, you just gotta look and say, what are you gonna make it? Unless you're coming from, top 5 academic athletic institutions, which I won't name not to sound arrogant. At that point, man, they all kind of the same, man. Like, all right, you're gonna get a nice degree. It's a decent college, but $600,000, and they got degrees at the next place too. If you're really getting that offer, first of all, don't talk about it.
Be about
it. Be
My
about
bad.
it.
That ain't where you was going with it. Just natural. Black
Just
folks.
off
We'll
the
talk about
shoulders.
it.
But
Be
yeah,
about
so
it.
either take that money and run, or shut up about it. I know you're talking about all the people with the money that people have been offering you.
Yeah, I vibe with Coach Prime, man. And again, in this episode of Rich Dad Poor Dad, Coach Prime started at an early age. He decided he was going to be their high school coach. He decided he was going to follow them and groom both of the young men. He decided he was going to take the job at Jackson State and take one of his kids, Shiloh, and get him to transfer from University of South Carolina. Take the other kid, Shador, who was at a minimum a 3-star prospect and had offers at much bigger programs, and take him to an HBCU at Jackson State. He then decided he was going to take both his boys and go to Colorado when that opportunity presented itself. He has been very clear that he wants to play a part in deciding which team drafts Shador and Shiloh and Travis. He has been very clear about that, very out front with it. And to me, that is a rich dad mentality. Call it LeVar Ball, fill in the blank with any other dad that has the foresight of helping his young football player, in this case, get to the point that he needs to be. I love it. I love it. Now that I'm involved in a lot of these conversations with some of these high schools, I'm taking sort of a similar approach. I don't have the cachet that Coach Prime has, but I damn sure got the vision of making sure it's a long-term investment. Don't tell me about how my son is going to be the starter in sophomore year. Tell me about the programs that you have that aren't related to sport. Tell me about the link that you have between sport and academic. Tell me about the internships or externships that you provide for our son to have access to these alum that you brag about. It is a rich dad mentality. Sport ends for all of us. Have a rich dad mentality. I'll give you last word on Coach Prime before we hop to the next topic, man. What you got for me? Coach Prime got it right. He need to write a similar book, a rich dad, poor dad version of book when it comes to developing young athletes, because that man has done it. He is the Robert Kiyosaki. He has written a book by way of example with his sons. Shout out to you, Coach Prime. I'll give you last word.
Just win, baby, win. That's all I want to see.
Win, baby, win. And he is indeed winning, even when they lost last week, a close game. Let's go to another topic, man, because there was another topic this week that brought me to this idea of rich dad, poor dad. Angel Reece is caught on live, not bragging, because she was not at all happy about it, but admitting, explaining, telling the live audience and sort of laughing about it that her WNBA salary won't even pay for her rent. Now, she had a little snag in the math, but seemed like she had someone there, an agent or somebody assisting, and they did the math, and she then disclosed, I don't think to be braggadocious, she was disclosing it as she was trying to figure out the math, that she pays $8,000 a month for rent. 8 times 12, that's $96,000. And she then said, no, my salary is not enough to pay that, because she's scheduled to make $73,000 or so this year.
Before tax. But I listened to her interview, she said it like, hey, I didn't get paid anything in college, so I look at this as extra money. She's gonna be all right. I mean,
meaning she didn't get paid anything from LSU, but
exactly. So right. All her money was NIL money, and that's basically all her money is now. This is the vehicle that keeps her popular. But she was at the Met Gala. She's a fashion, person now. She was on
Wild 'N Out with that purple outfit, the lavender outfit that I may or may not have seen a few times. She look good.
So I don't think she's complaining. I think she's just calling it what it is.
The rich dad mentality component of this is this, because there are people that took to the social media universes and had a field day with her. Both why are you, and she said it in the jokingly, I'm living beyond my means. So they had a field day with her saying, why are you living beyond your means? B, they had a field day with basically saying, ain't nobody feeling sorry for you. You in the WNBA, ain't nobody make you live $8,000 a month. And then they also had a field day with trying to say the WNBA is not providing enough value for it to have change. On all three accounts, I think they're wrong. First of all, the WNBA action has been fantastic. We had Sabrina Ionescu, that put an exclamation point to that again last night. These playoffs have been nothing short of remarkable. The viewership has supported it. So you're just wrong when it comes to that. And I think the WNBA has done a good job, and maybe it was just fortuitous and getting lucky to have these marquee names like Caitlin Clark and Angel Reece. And Angel Wilson is she's just bad. She's a bad girl, but a bad woman, sorry. And I think that you're wrong in that category. But let's back up. Although she's making $73,000 a year, and she jokingly said $73,000 this year, she jokingly said, I'm living beyond my means. Her NIL valuation last year was $1.8 million for the year, which means, and now we're talking pre-tax, this is gross, a difference of $1.7 million between going from college to what she's getting salary-wise for the WNBA. But if you'll recall, in the book, Rich Dad, Poor Dad, an employee's mentality is their salary gives them all they need in order to live, in order to exist, in order to do what they need to do to create a nest egg for their families. And that is the mentality that keeps most people broke. Angel Reece, knowing that her marketability, knowing that her Q score, if you will, the ability to recognize her, the brands that want to associate with her, dominates the salary part of it, is another example of rich dad mentality. I'll let you get last word on Angel Reece. Shout out to her, man. I'm wishing her nothing but the best. Whoever her stylist is, or if she's doing her own styling, her outfit and Wildin' Out, man, when they recorded that was pretty freaking impressive. She has become sort of a sex symbol in the WNBA, and I think there is some opportunity that will come from that, well beyond the NIL valuation of her senior year at LSU. I'll give you last word on it, man. The people that got all this to say about Angel Reece and trying to make fun of her, you say what?
Keep hating. Keep hating. Keep hating.
That's all they do. That's all y'all did.
I don't have $8,000 rent on where I live, and I've been doing this a lot longer than she's been alive. So I can't. Who am I to tell her what to do with? I can't pocket watch. She's got to do what she's got to go do. So she's making her money. She says she's living beyond her means, but obviously she's not, because she's paying the bill. She's
paying that bill.
She's doing
in addition, she will be playing in the 3-on-3 tournament, a 3-on-3 league, and according to reports, it is reported that she's going to make about $250,000 for that 3-on-3 league, which is about a 3-month season. She doesn't have to go overseas, so she don't have to face the potential Brittany Griner.
Nothing. Yeah,
she ain't got the Brittany Griner dark cloud hanging over her, living in some other culture that doesn't want her there. And oh, by the way, the 3-on-3 salary also agreement, her contract also includes equity. Equity, boys and girls, for those of you who have not read Rich Dad, Poor Dad, or the Cash Flow Quadrant, or all the basic financial books that Robert Kiyosaki has penned, equity is a big deal. Shout out to Angel Reece, man. Go get him, Angel. That is the new age student athlete, man. Get him, Angel. I did want to talk about this 12th man. Oregon admitted that they intentionally added a 12th man. I know Texas A&M got the 12th man on their stadium, but Oregon took it to a whole nother level. a strategical decision to put a 12th man and take the penalty on a crucial play, knowing that from a time perspective, you can replace points, you cannot replace time. You can replace yards, you cannot replace time. Ended up working for him. And instead of pretending as though it was a mistake, he owned it. And the NCAA was like, well, we got something for your Billy Badass and have changed the rule. Do you think it was right? We had a show called Efficient Breach. That's about as efficient of a breach as you can have, knowing that you're going to get the penalty and being okay with it. Risk reward assessment, but then also stepping in front of that mic and saying, yeah, I tried to do that. Do you think Oregon was wrong?
I thought that was silly. I think he should have been, I don't know if they asked him or not, if he did it on purpose, but he should have said, man, no, I don't know what happened. I mean, I've never seen the NCAA move this fast. They've been having committee meeting, where now the rules are changed and they put the time back on the clock if you do that with less than 2 minutes to go in a half of the quarter or the game. So the half of the game, not the quarter. But if I think he could have used it, he could have left that in his bag and used it again.
Fair.
Someone had to draw attention to it, but hey, if you ain't cheating, you ain't trying. At the end of the day, it wasn't even cheating. What a great way to exploit the game. Find a way to make the time run off the clock and not put yourself at risk, right? Now they didn't throw to where the 12th man was bunched up. I mean, I guess who's the 12th man, but they threw to the one-on-one coverage, so he had an opportunity for the first down. The guy played good D, so technically the 12th man didn't even help them that much because it wasn't like they were going to leave that guy uncovered, right? He was
Again,
a single three side.
hey,
But you never
Rich, that's a rich dad approach, man. I'm gonna go ahead and violate this rule. I've done the risk assessment. I know what can happen, and I'm willing to take that risk.
Why stop at 12 though?
You think it just went all 15? I mean, I'm assuming they would have blew the play dead if it added some additional risk. 15 players out there adds a significant additional risk to the 11 on the other
ref
side.
would have said, "What do we do? We've never had to deal with this before." Right?
Or maybe throwing a flag for illegal participation. I don't know.
Yeah, that might be an NFL rule because the guy participated. He wasn't trying to get off the field. So if there was, that has to be the NFL rule, illegal participation, because he was out there playing D. He wasn't like he just chilled.
Go ahead, Oregon, with your bad self. Let's go home with the technicality, man. Our ball hawk spotlight moment is going to be, you're going to lead this one, if you will. You brought it up, and it was news to me. I guess there is no longer going to be a national letter of intent for all the dinosaurs out there like me, for the people who grew up thinking in a poor dad mentality. I'm going to go get an education and going to work for somebody for 40 years and get a pension. For us, we really thought the national letter of intent was that moment where your dreams have been realized. And now they're going to do away with national letter of intents altogether. We say NIL so much that I struggle even thinking of how we used to refer to that as your NLI. But what say you, man? Educate the people before we get out of here. Why are they doing away with national?
It's one of those things that seemed like this bombshell, but turned out to be kind of just something that almost didn't even need to be said. So the NLI, not to be confused with NIL, but the NLI, National Letter of Intent, is a document that they've been using since the 60s to accept a scholarship. And so now they went and got rid of it. They really could have just changed it. But at the end of the day, if you read into it, all they did was get rid of the document, and they're going to replace it with a document that is more encompassing of the fact that revenue is going to be changing hands. So as of next year, they're going to be paying people. So people sign these NLIs may have some sort of a financial aspect to it. It'll probably read more like a contract, as a contract, like a professional contract than I never read mine. I don't know if you read yours. They said sign here, you got a scholarship. I signed it. I don't know. I
was cool with it on that.
I was 17. I think my mom and dad had to sign mine too. I wasn't ready.
Yeah, that was the case. If you were not 18, you had to get a co-sign.
I think it's much to be made of nothing. The rules are what they are. I first saw it and I was like, what is it? Not binding anymore? Or is it just show up and they'll pay if they feel like it? Like, how is it? It's nothing. Not much to be made of it. Just, it's just turning of the page. They'll call it something else.
I will say this from a technical standpoint, you're right. It just sounds more like a nuance. But I think it does hit home with this same idea of the show, We started the show talking to our sports dads, sports moms, sports parents about long-term investing, having a rich dad approach versus a poor dad approach. And if you think about now getting rid of the national letter of intent, and while they're substituting it for another agreement, it's sort of a revenue share agreement, or I think they're calling it financial aid agreement that has a clause in there that is ripe for the new rev share model that is likely to take place. In that is evidence of where this is going. In that is evidence that the hours and hours we spend currently in youth sports, wasting our energy, complaining about whether or not our son is starting, whether or not they're, RB1 versus RB2, whether or not they get to play offense and defense, whether or not they got enough targets this game, whether or not the coach is bringing in another player to compete, whether or not we win or lose. All of that time is poor dad mentality. The rich dad mentality. Rich mom, rich uncle, rich whatever. Is that these investments are long-term investments. The relationships that you create with coaches and players, the lessons that you learn through the adversity, losses included, the spirit of competition that you have to buy into in order to succeed, the sacrifices that you are willing to make in order to compete at a high level are long-term investments. Don't think like poor dad. There's passive income to be made. There's ownership and equity to be had. But you got to think from a rich dad perspective. This is just a means to an end. And while we think it matters, because we spend all week taking them to this practice, that matter, it just don't matter. And with that, been a great show, man. You want to get any parting words to the people?
Good luck tonight, Oregon, number 2, playing on a Friday night. Not a big fan of Friday night football, but you guys have made a statement.
Who's Oregon playing?
Purdue.
Yo, these matchups are just crazy, man. It's just like, how does that even happen?
They're all historical matchups, so it's going to be good this weekend. Doesn't really have anything that's that amazing. The Wildcats take on the Badgers, so we're going to find out what the Wildcats are made of after a big, huge beatdown of Maryland last week. So we'll see.
Right on. We're going to Maryland this week, taking the show on the road. My Jersey boys are going to play a team called the DMVU, trying to get our bite back after losing a really tough, hard-fought game to a new rival. Program's been around for a while. Hats off to them for winning the game Saturday night. Hats off to the players that used to play for us and their success there. While it's bittersweet, those guys played well, man. And from a long-term rich dad perspective, I'm always going to love all of those kids. And while we go back and forth with the parents, and that's just a part of it, because everybody loves their babies, our relationships don't matter. The relationships that matter are the ones with the kids and the ones between the kids. So I'm glad we get another opportunity to go out there and get this stank off of us, because it's a part of it, baby. When you feel like you didn't step up and deliver, you got another opportunity to do so. And that's what we'll do this Saturday. Notre Dame takes on Georgia Tech. There's a lot of other great college football out there. We ask you humbly, like we ask you every week, please like, please comment, please share, please tag a friend, please tag a foe, please tag anybody that you know, and please subscribe to the YouTube channel and the podcast. We are honored that you spent your afternoon, not morning, with us. This is the Ball Hog Sports Talk, where sports, business, and entertainment collide, where two businessmen get together and discuss sports in an entertaining fashion. We do it one way and one way only, rough, rugged, and raw. Please help us. It'd be helping somebody else by liking, comment, sharing, subscribing. Do all of them things. It won't cost you anything. But from a rich dad mentality, we'll be investing in guys who really love doing this podcast and providing this content. And with that, we is out. Peace.